okay. Okay. Are we live? Hello. Oh, 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Wow. 안녕하세요. 저 한국어 공부 중이에요. Okay. Oh, I cannot read Korean. Wow. How so many Korean people? 저 한국어 조금 알아요. I can MMA. No, I cannot MMA. 아니요. Give me a second. I cannot share where I live. Let's say secrets. Okay. Wow. Here's true. Hello. Dursun, is that proper pronunciation? Okay. We are now here. Good son, that's Gilad, my brother. Dursun. Voin. This is difficult to pronounce. Okay, let's just say Darye. Do you think Yang is a bit of agnostic? Yes, 1,000,000%. 1,001% Jung is at least a bit of agnostic. Hello, Hui Bin. 안녕하세요. 저 한국어 조금 알아요. I don't know how am I so privileged to have so many Korean people join this live. I'm not sure what happened, but hello. I cannot read. Thank you. 감사합니다. let's see, what are my friends who know, who didn't just stumble upon my life? What are my friends saying? How old? That's a secret. But my birthday is in 4 days. Is Gnosticism good in your opinion, or more of a model as metaphor, not actual metaphysical truth? Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, okay, that's a good question. Just a second, I want to check. How can I pronounce your name? Can I just say Darie? Okay, is Gnosticism good in your opinion, or more of a model as metaphor, not actual metaphysical truth? I can tell you from my perspective. I view it not as metaphysical truth. Voinoyu. Great question. Again, what I want to say is from my perspective, or I don't want to even say what it is. I will say how my relationship with it is it being a metaphor and a series of eternal truths perceived through metaphors. So that's how my relationship with it. I don't want to say what it is, but this is a really, really interesting question. Yeah. How do you see it? Is it good in your opinion? Please let me know. Yeah, that's a big man. Metaphysics have been kind of, how can we put it? A couple of philosophers, sort of brought an end to metaphysics, to put it that way, So I'm not. Yeah, that's a big one. Ooh, okay. I will just Nandan, hello brother. How do you deal with multiple intrusive thoughts you're generating randomly? This is maybe a more grounded question, or maybe more relevant to address. Voinoyu, let me just, if this is proper Voinoyu to say. Yeah. It's difficult to make an assessment if Jung talked about it. You say he disguises metaphysics as a model for psychic structure, yet it still implies something external, more like Platonic forms. I will go back, maybe this is me, influenced by Kierkegaard, his subjective truth. What is your relationship with it? What is your relationship with not just Gnosticism, but what Jung is presenting to you? What is your relationship? Not opinion on it, but relationship with it. Nandan, we will now address your question just to thank brother from Romania. Huge appreciation from Romania for everything you do, bro. Great appreciation, right back at you, my brother. Nandan, okay, so how do you deal with multiple intrusive thoughts generating randomly? We have to acknowledge there are different intensities of intrusive thoughts. So different intensities of intrusive thoughts, then it will depend what we can do about them and how we deal with them. I will tell you that you maybe saw me write about Morita therapy Japanese psychotherapy. So if I can, I want to deal with most intrusive thoughts using not necessarily straightforward framework, but rather philosophy of Morita therapy, and that's life engagement. Because here is a question for you, Nandan. Is your ultimate goal to be free of intrusive thoughts? Or is your ultimate goal to engage in your life? And life engagement, kind of a vague term, but you know what it means for you to engage in your life. I'm sure you have some goals, I'm sure you have some values that you want to live in line with. Then removing intrusive thoughts isn't the ultimate goal. Because I'm sure if I now handed you a document, metaphorical, imaginary document, where you can sign a deal to live life as fully as possible while experiencing intrusive thoughts. Not all the time, but occasionally, I think you would sign that deal. And this is a question for you, Nandan, and everyone listening. If you, and Alex, see you brother, see you brate, on the call in 3 days. So Nandan, question for you, and anyone listening, would you sign that deal? To have occasional waves of intrusive thoughts, but still to be able to fully engage in your life? Would you sign that deal? I know I would, and in some way I did. Then we are realizing that the ultimate goal isn't removal of intrusive thoughts once and for all. If we can manage them, handle them, if we can reduce their intensity, yes, we want to do so, but we cannot fall into the trap of thinking this is the ultimate goal. So if I take on that attitude, not right now, but if I take on it as an attitude to live by, it means that every single time I encounter intrusive thoughts, I have to remember that this is a wave, and my energy, my capacities, my vitality isn't supposed to be fully invested into combating these intrusive thoughts. To the extent that I can, to the extent that these intrusive thoughts are not paralyzing, my energy, my attention, and my vitality is supposed to be invested in the things that are in front of me, the tasks that I need to engage with, or that I need to engage in, the responsibilities that I need to take care of, the values that I want to live in line with. So, okay, I'm reading from Nandan. So, I want all of you listening to this to join, to share your perspective, because I'm presenting to you how I'm dealing with intrusive thoughts. So, okay, I see this both Vojnu and Serban. I will just say the last, maybe this is the last name. We have 2 brothers from Romania. Beautiful. I have great Alex, young programmer in my community, Sisyphus Society. He's also from Romania. Great guy. Shout out to Alex if he appears on the live. Okay. Nandan said previously, no, I actually try to solve each and every problem generated by these intrusive thoughts, but I do get mentally exhausted. Is it okay to get mentally exhausted after thinking rationally to solve these mental health problems? How do you deal with that exhaustion? Well, I try not to have to deal with that exhaustion because I try not to get exhausted from trying to rationally solve these things. So, okay, I gave you the context, so I think you are now understanding that. So you are now understanding why I tend to not I can get mentally exhausted from stress. I can get mentally exhausted from having a wave of intrusive thoughts, but I cannot get mentally exhausted from trying to rationally solve them, because I'm not trying to rationally solve them. So again, my question to you is, can you shift yet? This is not some kind of cheap mindset shift. This is a very real, because I can throw so many different schools of thought at you. Morita therapy from Japan, saying it's about life engagement. These are symptoms that you don't need to analyze. Then you have humanistic psychology telling you these are symptoms. They are not to be seen as signs of you being sick, and it's not about fixing yourself. It's about recognizing potentially where did you get stuck in your personal growth journey. One of the greatest books that I've read, Abraham Maslow's Farther Reaches of Human Nature, the most important chapter, probably the most important chapter of any book that I read in my life, says neurosis as a failure of personal growth. Neurosis as a failure of personal growth. Not neurosis as mental sickness. Not neurosis as chemical imbalance in brain. Neurosis as failure of personal growth. So many of these internal disturbances, Maslow claims, and he knew a thing or two about human nature and human psyche, and many agreed with him. So many of these internal disturbances are results of failing to engage in our journey of personal growth, or stumbling somewhere along the journey of our personal growth, and or these inner disturbances are also inner callings to engage, to embark on the journey, to make a more courageous choice. So approaching them, strictly rationally and trying to solve everything in a kind of analytical way can more often than not be, I will not say more often than not, I will just say can often be problematic. Matija, where are you from? Love the content. Ja sam, brate, iz Crne Gore. Odakle si ti? Matija. Okay, well, for me, when it comes to intrusive thoughts, I try to remain as objective as possible. I try to recognize patterns, and just like our brother said here, I try to acknowledge them. Acknowledge them, brother. Acknowledge them. Acknowledge them. It's very rarely that we can dismantle them and fight them. So it's good to acknowledge them, and if there is a way to regulate, let's do so. But let's also see if there is a way to re-engage in our life. Matija, so, ok, majka iz Hrvatske, Čale iz Srbije, živiš u Engleskoj. Pozdrav, brate. Diego, hello. Another saying, any insights on harm OCD? I just have to, I know what OCD is, but I'm going to be completely honest. Harm OCD, okay, this is new for me. Harm OCD. Okay. Oh, so a new term for me, but I can tell you, I personally have dealt with this. I don't know how so again, it's all about intensity. Believe it or not, I have dealt with this because of some personal experiences, but never knew that there is an actual term, harm OCD. Wow, you're going to send me down a rabbit hole. You're going to send me down a rabbit hole of studying a bit around about harm OCDs, so I would be lying now if I told you that I have specific insights on harm OCD, as I haven't studied it, but I can tell you from personal experience. Again, what are we talking about, brother? You know, are we talking about intrusive thoughts to the point of not being able to function properly throughout your day, or are we talking about intrusive thoughts where you are moving through, you know, where you are getting your chores done, when you are going to work, or you are studying? And that's it. That's a big question. That's a big question. What type of intensity are we talking about when it comes to all intrusive thoughts, not just harm OCD, all intrusive thoughts? Because I know people, excuse me, I've spoken to people, you know, sometimes I have people that I work one-on-one with. There are people unbelievably inspiring who have gone through severely traumatic experiences, and they are experiencing to this day an inner war that would leave a lot of people paralyzed in terms of life engagement, but they are out there finishing their degree, going to work, things of that sort. And maybe that doesn't seem like an exceptional life, you know, but when you're struggling internally, it's a great accomplishment to still show up and engage in the world. So that's a big question, you know, what type of intensity are we talking about? Is the person dealing with intrusive thoughts capable of engaging in the world, and has he or she been engaging in the world and taking care of some major aspects of their life? Or when are you studying philosophy or something like that? Because you're asking very interesting questions. I'm familiar with. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Byung-Chul Han. You know, before we had some Koreans on the stream, so they would be able to pronounce it more properly. Yes, I am familiar with his work, and I'm going to give you some food for thought. Why are not more people? He's relatively famous. He's relatively famous in intellectual circles. But why isn't he more famous? Because he's a cultural critic. I mean, you know, he's a philosopher, but he's a cultural critic. I immensely respect that. But you know, what's the problem? I'm not saying it's a problem for me, but you know, that's people want to talk about solutions. People want to talk about somewhat practical steps. People want to talk about what can I do about this. And when things stay on the level of more academic philosophy and cultural critique, decent portion of potential readership and audience is cut off. But again, you know, it's what is the goal of the thinker, of the writer? Yeah, you know, because let's say that he wanted to make an effort, you know, to kind of maybe take Jordan Peterson approach and advance his message, but also address a certain group of people and, you know, say, okay, you can do this or this. I mean, they're completely different you know, different professions, different fields, but still there is some overlap there where, you know, I'm giving an example of Peterson as someone who is great at self-marketing. And you're doing cognitive science, man. That's amazing. That's amazing. Good to hear, and I hope you're doing well. Okay, brother, how can I pronounce the name? Serban, I will just say Serban, brother. We'll drink coffee one day. I think I will have to visit Romania because now I have a lot of people appreciating my work from Romania, so definitely I will have to visit. Definitely. Thank you for the appreciation. We said Hermes asked what to do for grogginess in the head, brain fog, low energy. That's a loaded question, and I would be kind of silly to just give you a simple answer, but you have to start experimenting in the sense of addressing your lifestyle. You have to start with lifestyle, sleep, food, hydration, movement. Food is usually what people want to address first, and that's a kind of rabbit hole where you can go in 1,000,000 different directions, but start experimenting. How are you starting your day? Are you starting your maybe the easiest thing to ask is, are you starting your day with the screen? If yes, can we wake up and not use the phone for the first 20-30 minutes? That would be a good idea. When it comes to food, again, so many different food ideologies that I don't want to engage in that right now. But when you say grogginess in the head, brain fog, low energy, you have to start experimenting with your lifestyle and with your environment. Okay, Nandan, it's like getting things done. So back to the intrusive thoughts, getting things done amidst these thoughts, yet your brain doesn't get reward, or your brain doesn't reward you even after you have accomplished enough. This is interesting, and I want to be careful, because we are talking about stuff that deserves full care and attention. From a let me put it like this. From a philosophical / psychological perspective, so you are still getting things done. So that's an indication both of your capacity to still engage in life despite the symptoms. So in your case, symptoms are intrusive thoughts. Symptoms, covers so many different things that could be those inner obstacles. So you still getting things done is, first of all, a confirmation, a proof of your capacity, your ability to continue engaging in your life and getting things done despite the symptoms. That's one thing. Another thing, further encouragement, is a proof that this thing that is a problem in your life, that is an obstacle, even though it's coming in intense waves, and even though it seems like these waves sometimes last for a long time, it's being proven again and again and again that they are not of a sufficient intensity to paralyze you. So two extremely encouraging facts. We cannot just overlook them. We cannot. I understand that you are sharing how it's extremely difficult and it feels like your brain isn't rewarding you even after you accomplish enough, but we have to acknowledge the immensely positive side, immensely, because you cannot take it for granted that you are persisting, because not everyone is. So give yourself the credit, and also acknowledge the fact that the situation is manageable. But when it comes to, yet your brain doesn't reward you, that's why I said from a philosophical and psychological perspective. But we are now started talking about brain doesn't reward you. Maybe you're talking about very specifically feeling like brain isn't rewarding, like we are talking about neurological perspective. That's an area that I'm not comfortable speaking on, at least not when it comes to things of this sort, So yet your brain doesn't reward you even after you have accomplished enough. Is it, give me a second. Okay. I will ask you a question. Do you, when you make a statement, yet your brain doesn't reward you, do you feel like that's, do you feel like you're talking about a neurological phenomenon? Do you feel like that's, something occurring on a chemical level, physiological chemical level, or do you feel like it's also a matter of inner narrative? Do you feel like it's also a matter of attitude towards yourself and your life? That's a big question. I would love to probably listen to it, watch it. I'm guessing it's in that format. Or would you share the presentation that I can read slide by slide? Either way, drop me a message on Instagram. I would love to consume it in any format. I cannot promise that I can do it in the next couple of days, but during the next week I most definitely can. And then, any books you can suggest? I would like to know the science behind these thoughts. Okay. Just a second. You want to know the science behind intrusive thoughts? Or when you say thoughts, you mean the thoughts that you and I are exchanging here? That's, because when it comes to science of intrusive thoughts, I'm going to be honest, I cannot really recommend books, because books haven't been my main source of knowledge on that. It's been paper, article here and there, but science behind intrusive thoughts, I'm not the most I'm not the most well-read person on that. And science behind the thoughts that you and I are exchanging, relationship with yourself and your life, more philosophical and psychological perspective, that's where I could recommend some books. Well, I know you're looking forward to it. Okay. I see more people are live. Ask a question, don't be shy. And when you are still here, continuing and waiting for Nanda, and also for some more clarification when it comes to the book request. But feel free, friends, to ask anything. If it's too personal, I will not answer, but you can still ask anything. Okay, Headspace. I've heard of Headspace. Is that an app? Headspace. Okay. Nice. Okay, it's paid. You know what? I have to share my opinion. Okay, Mental Health Awareness Month, 40% off our plans. I have to make a comment on Headspace being paid. And listen, I even, when you said Headspace, I wasn't sure if it's an app. So anything paid related to self-education, self-betterment, personal growth. You know how I look at it. let's start with books. You know, I'm buying a book, it's a $10, or it's rarely $10 nowadays, rarely. It's like $12, $15, $20, sometimes 22, 25, especially when buying older psychology books, like $25. But here's the thing. One sentence in a 500-page book can change your life. It's a no-brainer every single time for me to buy the book. No-brainer. And maybe someone listening to this can generally view that as a privileged position, and I will admit it. Yes, at this point in my life, I feel blessed that I can buy a $25 book without too much thinking and without too much worrying. It wasn't always like that, but I never saved much on those things. Why am I saying all of this? Because again, with full acknowledgement that there are people who at some point generally cannot invest almost any money into self-betterment. I fully acknowledge that, but that cannot prevent me from saying that the vast majority of people can invest some money, whether that's buying a book or paying a $5 per month app that is going to help them with some betterment, or maybe it's a bigger investment. But I think that's because the potential return, not guaranteed return, but potential return is so great that you almost cannot afford not to take that chance. Caps lock. Hey man, I can relate with it. What are you currently reading? I'm reading Nietzsche right now, and it's exactly like you said. His words and thoughts have changed my life. Man, I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that. Can you tell me what are you currently reading from? What are you currently reading from Nietzsche? And I will tell you what am I currently reading. Okay, I'm reading two books by James Hollis, Jungian analyst. I'm reading Under Saturn's Shadow, on the Healing and Wounding of Man. Intense book, a bit heavy on healing and wounding of man. Yeah, on healing and Jungian perspective on men's development and what men have been missing, not just in the last 10-15 years. We are thinking like problem with men occurred the last 10-15 years, that we are lacking something from the society. It's been over 100 years that men have been disconnecting from their source. Okay, I'm reading that. I'm reading his book. Now the name is escaping me. On the magical other. It's a Jungian perspective on love relationships. I will find the book now. I'll tell you. And the Eden Project, in search of the magical other, and that's what I'm reading. I'm reading also Man's Search for Himself by Rollo May, existential psychologist. I'm reading The Meaning of Anxiety by Rollo May. What else do I have open? And this is, by the way, not suggesting that everyone should read 10 books at a time, but a couple of books at the same time I definitely recommend. It can be very, very productive, not in the sense of reading a lot and reading quickly, but balancing out, because just more often than not, just diving into one book at a time can be more exhausting than reading 3 books and being able to switch between them. I'm reading a couple of more books. I'm reading James Bugental, I think it's a correct pronunciation. That's a also existential psychologist. one of the founders of existential psychology, existential humanistic psychology, very underappreciated and overlooked. What else do I have? I have a couple more books here. Ooh, I have The Art of Counseling by Rollo May. That's one of his earlier works. He wanted to help people counsel. I mean, all professions related to helping others one-on-one. Art of Counseling, focusing. I'm reading Focusing by. Still reading Focusing. What's the name? Wow, sometimes. Focusing by Eugene Gendlin or Gendlin. I'm not sure what's the correct pronunciation. And it's a book from the 1978, so it's not really a new book. Twilight. Okay. You started reading Twilight of the Idols. I'm reading more books, but now it's escaping because I'm switching between them. So yeah. Okay, started reading Twilight of the Idols. It's quite heavy, especially coming from a Christian background. Yeah, I would guess so. I have also read Beyond Good and Evil, and okay, man, that's what we are talking about. Okay, Beyond Good and Evil and Genealogy of Morality. But you should read. I think you're ready. If you read Beyond Good and Evil and Genealogy of Morality, or Genealogy of Morals, sometimes different. You should, man, you're ready for the gay science, and that's a book, man, and that's a. Cannot say enough about it. Beyond Good and Evil and the gay science, those are. I'm now getting chills, literally, just mentioning them. Unbelievable. So yeah, I think you're ready for the gay science, and yeah. When it comes to, you said download the books you mentioned. Yeah, man, there are other books that I would recommend before or more than the books that I mentioned. I'm just saying the books that I'm reading currently. But here is the book that I have been reading, and I have been reading on a weekly basis for the last 3 years of my life. Let me pick it up. Just a second. Just have to find. Because I'm traveling with books. I'm traveling with way too many books. Okay, here they are. You see, this one is still unpacked. Maybe I need to. Just a second. Okay. Han Kang, The Vegetarian. That's the Korean writer that won the Nobel Prize. So you see, still unpacked. What do I have? I have The Elements of Style. You see, a really short book on writing. I have Journey to the West. One of the greatest. This is released like this as a series. One of the greatest novels, at least one of the greatest Asian novels. But when you think of its impact, it's one of the greatest novels of all time from any culture, because of how widespread its influence is. One of the first. How do you call it? Great example of the hero journey, and also what I wanted to say about it. Kind of predecessor of all anime, because it has so many of the tropes of the character leveling up. So cool. Here is Always With Me, Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Always With Me. I've gave away around 10 of these to different people. Just a second. more, but here is just okay. Here is the one. Here's, you see how, and listen, I've been reading it for the first 2 years or almost 3 years as an ebook. It's only last October that I got my hands on it, and you see how it's how it's ruined, in less than a year. The farther reaches of human nature by Abraham Maslow. So I'm always reading this book. It's always on my reading list, as an active read. So yeah, that's why I'm saying from the books that I can recommend, those that I mentioned previously aren't necessarily maybe my top recommendations, but that's what I'm currently reading. And a lot of them are also in ebook format. And yeah, another maybe the best book out, the best new book that I recently read is Stolen Focus. Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. Really good book. Really good book. It's more of a social critique, to be honest, than practical solution how to improve your focus. So just be aware of that. Be aware of the fact that it isn't, here are 10 lessons on how to focus better. It's a lot of it is criticizing how the modern society has ruined our ability to focus, and that the change has to come on a systematical level if we want to save our kids, because at the end of the day it should be about the kids, I think. This one, Bird by Bird, by Anne Lamott. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Sounds like a French last name, but the lady is American. Yeah. Couple of other books there. There is, okay, let's just give a shout out to Nikolai Berdyaev. This is in Serbian language, given to me by, I cannot say friend, I cannot say brother, because it's given to me by the greatest man that I've ever known. So that's the one that I carry with me. And yeah, maybe that's enough about books. Nandan, tips to manage social anxiety. Tips to manage social anxiety. How often are you putting yourself in positions to challenge the social anxiety? There is the how they call it. How do they call it? The something like gradual exposure. Is it gradual exposure? Yeah, I think it's gradual exposure, something like that. Gradual exposure therapy. But if, for example, Morita therapy, you know what Morita therapy would say? It would say you're experiencing social anxiety because you care about developing social interactions. You care. And that doesn't mean that people who are not experiencing social anxiety don't care. But it means that for whatever reason, your care manifests itself in that way. So social anxiety, although immensely uncomfortable, is to be acknowledged and to be moved through, rather than, okay, once I fix social anxiety, then I will do the thing. Here is exposure therapy. I don't like the feeling of uncomfortableness. Here is example what I want to share with you. Andres, wonderful young man from Texas, also a member of my community. I remember one of the first times when we talked, he expressed that social anxiety is one of the challenges of his life. And he Man, how impressive. He started working in sales to challenge his social anxiety. Like, man, like imagine nightmare job for all introverts, and I'm an introvert. You know, to work in sales. He took on that as a challenge to deal with social anxiety, and I know he said, you know, like the symptoms are still there. You know, he's still anxious. He's still socially anxious. And then, you know, we had calls and conversations, and I proposed him this idea from Morita therapy that maybe it's not about eliminating social anxiety, maybe it's about engaging in life despite of it, and just gaining proof that he can live high quality of life and can engage in his journey despite this symptom or symptoms. One of the next things that he done, it was to join Toastmasters. That's an organization that helps people with public speaking. Again, and like public speaking, the biggest fear of most people. There is this statistic that kind of something like more people are afraid of public speaking than they're afraid of dying. Anyway, he joined Toastmasters. And I remember him saying, you know, kind of in complaining tone that social anxiety is still there. He took all of these challenges to combat his social anxiety, but it's still there. Then he committed to doing maximum amount of speeches that a single member of Toastmasters can do in a given time. So I think it was commitment that he made in the community, something like, okay, for the next 2 months he's going to do the maximum amount of speeches that a Toastmasters member can do. And he continued saying, social anxiety is still there, I don't know, it's still a big challenge in my life. And then he started competing in public speaking. He started, for anyone dealing with social anxiety, listen to this. He started competing in public speaking. The guy who, but that's also courage. There's no other way around it. Courage. It's a choice. He got a job in sales to challenge his social anxiety. He joined the Toastmasters to try public speaking, to challenge his social anxiety. Social anxiety was still there. And there he did maximum amount of speeches. Social anxiety is still there. He started competing in public speaking. Social anxious person, he's saying, social anxiety is still there. So he's tackling the challenge, but the challenge is still there. And then we had a conversation. I said, Andres, I don't know if it's okay that I'm giving away his name, but I think he would be proud for the story to be shared. I said, Andres, we are now talking about social anxiety still being there, but can you take a moment to reflect on what you've been doing? What is more important? Social anxiety still being there, or you doing competitions in public speaking? What is a stronger force? What is a stronger proof of your ability to live the life that you want to live? So I'm presenting him as the example of, sometimes the thing, whatever the thing is, it still persists in your life. But if you can observe yourself acting in life, engaging in life, I think you can go to sleep, satisfied most of the time. And also, Nandan, for you, just let me tell you something, brother. I'm an introvert. I've been socially anxious. I've been socially anxious for most of my life, and in teenage years, I've been escaping social anxiety through psychoactive substances. That was my way to wind down or to hype myself up. you know. And then I embarked on a more healthy journey of personal growth and self-discovery. To this day, I have moments where my heart starts rapidly beating, and my hands, are shaking in a social situation that was kind of that was unexpected and put me in a position that I didn't really plan on having. I'm not ashamed to say it. So to this day, and I can tell you when was the last time it happened. You know when? Yesterday. Yesterday was the most recent time it happened. But at the same time, I've had a great experience in love. I have great experience in hundreds and hundreds of hours of online calls with my community, with people, one-on-one, with giving workshops online to strangers, the socially anxious introvert. But to this day, I tend to experience the symptoms of social anxiety. So, also I am a proof to you that you can engage. Again, I'm not making claim that I understand your intensity, that is the intensity of your struggle, but there are too many examples of people living high quality, meaningful, fulfilling lives despite extreme inner obstacles. There are too many of those examples for you to retreat from life. Retreat. And to be a bit blunt, there are too many of those examples for you to give yourself the excuse and to retreat from life because of the inner obstacle. Bueno, I don't know, man. I don't know if you've heard of, you probably have heard of cannabis-induced psychosis. Probably was that. But I cannot attribute all of my, far. I mean, to say that all of my inner struggles came from that would be ridiculous, because I've first moments of anxiety that I remember were like maybe 5-6 years old, and intrusive thoughts also 5-6 years old, and existential crisis way too young, and also some symptoms of depression. So I never all of those things existed there, so I don't have to make that emphasis that it's not like my life was great and my internal state was great, and just one time I experienced cannabis-induced psychosis and everything, far from it. Especially because also that cannabis-induced psychosis and that excruciating breakdown, it's not even a panic attack, man. It was I'm not even, to be honest, I'm not ready to talk about it in detail with the closest people in my life, let alone here. So that would tell you enough. But yeah, it was way more than a panic attack. But I mean, it's been a journey to pick the pieces up and learn something from it. And human psyche is interesting. Okay, you had similar experience, not psychosis, just the dissociation, and lasted months. Insane how people just say weed is safe. Man, it is insane. It is insane, and I've been on the other side. I've been on the other side and thinking that it's not it's. I could really dive deep into it. Also, people saying that it's not a gateway drug. It is a gateway drug. Also, you're coming from how do you count Romania? Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe. I don't know how you count it. I'm probably not Southeast. I mean, Montenegro is Southeastern Europe. But for our region, man, for our region that isn't or hasn't been really economically flourishing like the real West, man, weed is definitely a gateway drug. So people who say weed isn't a gateway drug, it's us from these rough areas when we are ignorant, and it's people from privileged areas where you can work your 7-figure job and get high from dispensary, from medical grade weed on the weekends. Those types of people can say that it's not a gateway drug. But man, like I know that in less utopian areas, weed is definitely a gateway drug, and that's even social aspect of it, because that's a social, that's in socio-political aspect of weed. It is a gateway drug, but on the aspect of safety, as you say, and it can do serious damage. Yeah, man, it's so difficult to explain. I would to be honest, I would like to hear, because I've read a lot about dissociation, but I can never say that is that part of what I experienced. I can never say, because I'm going to tell you, like, for me, to this day, I feel I'm affected by what happened. To this day, I feel I'm affected, and I have periods where I get less secure in my own inner stability, and my nervous system can be very, very sensitive. So I also kind of made peace with the fact that I will always be affected in some way by what happened. But there was a period after a year and a half, 2 years or so, that I felt like, okay, I've got some resolution out of this, because it also involved for me a lot of inner work, because of the things that popped up from that, and also like colliding with my existing inner struggles. So I can say that there was a period of then conclusion, and did I experience dissociation somewhere in there? I'm not sure. So I would even like to hear, other than reading, I would like to hear what that is, or what that's like. I've heard this I've heard this being like a movie. I heard of this before. Like watching a movie, you lose the narrative, the continuum of feeling that you have had throughout the day. Okay. Yeah, that's it. How do you feel now? Do you feel? You told me that it lasted. Sorry. You told that it lasted like 2 weeks, I think. Sorry, lasted months. I don't know why I said 2 weeks. I have no idea why. Hello, Keith. Hello. Spent years smoking cannabis, living in San Francisco, functioning well. Many people in California are high all day. Yeah, I've heard of it. But I think it eventually causes some kinds of negative psychological effects. I would guess so. I know there are people who use it responsibly. I know there are people, again, where is it sourced from? Because, man, I know in Eastern Europe, it can be sprayed with very dangerous substances to make it hit harder. And then you can imagine the risk of smoking something like that. But yeah. Being scared that at some point I'll go insane because the feeling is that you know something is wrong and you can't necessarily put your finger on it. Man, I know that feeling. You know how well I know that feeling. Extremely well. Extremely well. So before, okay, Nandan, here we're talking about intrusive thoughts, we're talking about social anxiety. I don't want to make any comparisons, this or that. I just believe if you go through a period of questioning your sanity, and I've gone through a period of questioning my sanity every single hour for months and months and months. And then from there you start to question also your desire to live, you know, because why? Why would you want to keep on living sometimes when you feel like you can never go back to normal life? So why am I saying this? That's such an extreme case of falling into the trap of this loop of why am I wrong, why am I broken, why am I messed up, and then I'm ashamed of being broken or messed up, and this fixating on the symptoms and fixating on inability to switch symptoms on and off. So what we are talking about here is an extreme example of that, and it can be, I'm claiming this can be translated to intrusive thoughts. I mean, you know, there is some overlap there, but it can also be translated to insecurity, to social anxiety. I'm not saying the experience is the same, but the thought pattern of fixating on symptoms and fixating on inability to change symptoms, that's the overarching pattern in all of these stories. Because I know, and like, when I made a shift, and it's not like, you know, again, it wasn't switching, you know, flipping a switch, but one of the things that saved me was focusing on responsibilities of my life, focusing on the things that I can engage in, focusing on the people that I can potentially help, instead of spending the whole day thinking of, am I sane or am I insane? So, you know, now, for example, to go back to Nandan and talking about social anxiety, man, it's a choice of, are you going to spend most of your day thinking about you being insecure, or are you going to spend most of your day trying to live your life? I even see, man, this is so, you know, I sort of answered the question without even reading. Is it okay to feel insecure for being insecure? I was literally what I was talking about, literally, you know. I will go back to Morita therapy. They even, you know, they even have the name, you know, Japanese expression for fixation on the fixation on the symptoms, fixation on the inner sensations. Is it okay? You know, who am I to say is it okay or not? But it's a, man, I'll be straightforward. It's a self-sabotaging behavior, but it's also a self-centered behavior. And there are other things in life to address. And I'm telling you this as someone who was in that place, you know, because also at some point I had to come to the realization that it's a self-centered, man. Even questioning your own sanity can be self-centered, because I had that realization, man, I still have the capacity to show up in my life. And trust me, like when you're questioning your sanity, it's not like you can really execute on a high level. So I was executing my daily tasks on a very low level, very, very, very low level. I was reading one paragraph per day. That was my reading. And that was, reading one of my main activities. At that point, I was already the guy writing online. So I was executing my daily tasks on a very low level, but still, okay, I'm questioning my sanity, but I haven't reached the point of, complete, how do you call it? Complete breakdown where I cannot function properly. So if that's the case, then I really cannot spend whole day just thinking, am I sane or not? When you're saying you've never had sign of psychosis, but when you have an edge towards philosophy, you may even fall into these high existential crises like huge absurdity. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying I can never say that all of my internal struggles, or even majority of them, came from that psychosis. But it was a beautiful mix, already having experienced anxiety and existential crises, and a sprinkle of depression here and there, and then combining with this. So man, I think getting deeply engaged in philosophy, you cannot avoid certain amount of serious existential struggle. Shailene Naito. What happens when you feel like you're in flow, but you're getting stuff done and feeling good overall, but most, if not all, of your thoughts are just centered around fear of losing that flow? I have to answer to you based on the original understanding of flow. It's impossible. It's impossible at the same time to be in flow and worry about losing flow. Then you're not in flow. So I don't know if we are talking about the real psychological experience of flow, like flow state, like described by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the man who wrote the book Flow. Are we talking about it? Because that's a short-term temporary experience, or are you using it more like a term? My life is going well. I feel like I'm in flow. I'm getting things done more, or on a kind of medium-term to long-term basis, like on a weekly basis. Or it's been a stretch of couple of weeks where I'm doing well. Is that the type of flow that you're talking about? Because okay. Life is going okay. Life is going well. Let me say something that maybe isn't expected, but you will lose that flow. All of us lose that flow. So we know for certain that life isn't a straight upward moving trajectory. We know that for sure. So you are bound to lose that flow. Now the question is, have you had experiences in life, some events that affected you strongly, where kind of structure of your life fell apart by no fault of your own, and you couldn't do much about it, so you're now maybe a bit more sensitive than the average person, or maybe a bit more cautious than the average person, because of the constant awareness that things can go wrong. You know, that's possible, and that's completely reasonable. But either way, or let me stick around on that point. Then you owe it to yourself to kind of work on the narrative of your life, because you cannot be stuck in a loop of waiting for your fears to be confirmed. Like the let's take the example, a person who has been cheated in the past. So then at every next relationship that they enter, they're anticipating to be cheated on, and then they create fights with their partner, because subconsciously they would rather break up through a fight than be cheated on again. So they're going to start the fight. Oh, you looked at that person. I saw you. No, you looked at that person and you didn't answer my message for 1 hour. You are seeing someone else. Blah blah blah, and they end the relationship because they're trying to at the same time confirm their fear, because it, even though it sounds crazy, but that's what's familiar. So let me confirm, and then let me protect myself from this thing that I'm convinced that is going to happen. So kind of I went on a side tangent there that maybe isn't relevant, but are we going to spend our life constantly trying to confirm our biggest fears, or are we going to allow ourselves to move forward? Why no, my man. Talk to you soon. Thank you. We will also wrap this up. Oh, this is sleep time for me actually. So we'll wrap this up soon, but let us see a couple of more messages. Coach team, hey David, šta radiš? Thank you for using my language, brother. Hope you're well. What's your opinion on politics and its effect on our mental state as a society? Is politics in general something you engage in? Every single day I think about politics, because I'm a social creature, and social creatures, I think, cannot not be political creatures. Do I engage in political activism? Not, because I'm spending my time in countries where it's not really my position to engage in political activism, and sometimes I spend time in countries where I don't know much about political situation, but on a global level I do care about political situation. And I think when you see a self-improvement bro try to say that politics don't matter, and I'm on purpose saying self-improvement bro, so you can think of who is your favorite podcaster or self-improvement bro who is trying to present himself as an intellectual, but is trying to avoid political talk because maybe it's not the most strategic move. Those are despicable humans, despicable, because they are just cowards. I will definitely not, I will not spend like people from from probably every country has majority of people who are engaging in politics in terms of on on a very ignorant level, talking about parties. My party is a good one, this is a bad one, and they just, for them politics is like a sport. It's just a way to lose themselves, So that's, I'm not engaging in politics in that sense. I'm not engaging in politics in that sense, but politics is everything. Politics is everything, brother. Politics is everything. So how it affects our mental state? Mental state as a society. That's the thing. That's the thing. When there is no. Let me just try to say this. Organize my thoughts. Every philosophy and psychology that isn't engaging in mental masturbation and isn't engaging in thought experiments that are not really relevant in real life, every philosophy and psychology that is addressing the human being and trying to help the human being live a better life, meaningful life, more fulfilling life, every philosophy and psychology of that sort has to talk about politics at some point, and talks about politics at some point. Because, man, how can we talk, how can we talk about self-actualization and individuation if we are ignoring the impact on a corrupt, that a corrupt society has on an individual? It's impossible. Let me go back for a moment. Just a second. Coach team, Ahmedi. I don't know, man, if I've answered you. I went on a rant there because I really feel passionate about those things. So maybe it wasn't the answer that you were looking for, but and maybe it wasn't really clear. But politics are important. So Shailin is Naida saying, I feel like I'm stuck in a well of trying to prove my negative thoughts right, so at least I have prior knowledge that I'm going to be right about something as dumb as that sounds. It doesn't sound dumb at all. It doesn't sound dumb at all. But then, consider, for example, Seneca, Seneca's letters, and him talking about, anticipating the troubles. Man, it's one to anticipate the trouble so that you're not hit too hard with it when it arrives, because you have anticipated and you were aware that things can go wrong in life. That's one thing, but another thing to be completely stuck in just waiting for life to go south, if that's the proper expression. So the question is, what are you doing then with, because life is now going well, so is it even going well? Is it even going well if you are spending most of your time and energy and attention on waiting for it to go bad? And, because at the end of the day, this is all about your subjective experience of life. So let's say you're now on an upward trajectory. You said before, you call that flow, but life is going well, you're getting things done. Let's say that lasts 6 months, but those 6 months you are, kind of half of your capacities are invested in making use of that upward trajectory, and half of your capacity is constantly worrying about when things are going to fall apart. So then when things do, when you do encounter some obstacles, you will look back on those 6 months and realize, they weren't so good. You were on an upward trajectory somewhat, but things weren't so good because you didn't make full use of it. James Kent, hello. Course team, food for thought. Thank you, brate. And we will. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your working insights. I appreciate your very interesting question, and I appreciate you sharing. We're going to have to wrap this up soon. Let me just say to Nanda asking any insights on ways to reduce narcissism and being so self-centric. And man, before you ask, what do you think of multipolar syndrome? Brother, I have to be blunt with you. So we started with intrusive thoughts, and then you said harm, OCD, then you said social anxiety. So now I'm really, I'm going to be honest, is this a matter of intellectual curiosity or so many syndromes, so many, like, what are your goals, brother? What are, the question, what are your goals? What are your values? What are your responsibilities? What do you need to get done? Because so much interest in different, so much, maybe this isn't, the most pleasant thing to hear, but it comes from a place of brotherly love, that this is not a good use of your time and energy and attention, and a prolonged investment of time, energy, and attention in these things usually doesn't turn out well. So instead of talking about narcissism and multipolar syndrome and harm, OCD, and social anxiety and all of those things, let's talk about goals, responsibilities, duties, actions to be taken, maybe potentially even passion, challenges, structure in life. Yeah. Okay, I will have to wrap it up. I will just, last. I agree that politics is almost inherently a part of life's question, though I do not recall it in your work. You highlighted some political frameworks. Political frameworks. Yeah, I don't see myself really I don't see myself talking about political frameworks, because I'm also risking diluting my message. Spreading myself too thin in terms of what value can I bring. But you will see for example, in my newsletter, multiple times when I talk about self-actualization, I mention the societal / political aspect of it. And I would say here and there, especially my longer form stuff, here and there I throw in, here and there I acknowledge because societal aspect is political aspect of any and all psychological frameworks. So if we add this societal dimension to it, we are adding political, and again, political frameworks. I will not be diving into theory too much in my work, in my writing, because I have more work to do with the ideas that I have already opened up in terms of philosophical and psychological ideas. But you will see me on Instagram being active in political discussions, maybe too much for my own good. But yeah, maybe I will say this much. I'll say this much. Society that is hyper-focused on profit creates degenerates. That's what it creates.